Well, it all started in the summer of 2010. There's small pockets of woods, 20 acres to 100 acres in size. Otherwise, it's farm fields. Our farm is 200 acres of clear ground, and there's 100 acres across the road from us. And it's a group of 20 heifer calves, rotated in pasture regularly, accustomed to being handled, and weren't afraid to come by us, knew when we came it was time to move pasture. We've had cows calve out in pasture before during late fall, early winter time. Then there was no calf to be found. Did it die itself? Did it get up, walk away, and die? Or did something come take it? And not knowing that the wolves were in the area, you don't think of that, so you don't go looking for tracks or anything that could take something away like that.
We had several just knocks on the door. Like one week you'd get a knock on the door and they'd be like, oh, we just seen some calves out. So you'd get up and you'd go out and you'd find them and they'd be in the roadway always. Just standing there like, come get us. Come take us back to where we belong. And you would take them back to where they were, count them, feed them some more grain, and yep, they're fine. Got good pasture. Go back to bed.
Really didn't think about it. And then that happened like 2 or 3 times, and then in July, the sheriff's department called us at 3 in the morning and said we had to report a large group of cattle on the road. And they were about a quarter mile away from the farm. You don't expect phone calls at 3 in the morning, so it gets your adrenaline pumping. You hear your cattle are out on the road, so you get dressed as fast as you can to get out and take care of your livelihood.
And we thought it was milk cows, because that's all they ever say is it's cattle. You got a bunch of cows on the road, and it's like, oh, great. So you run, and you're like, oh, my God, hopefully nothing gets hit. Hopefully nothing bad happens. And we live on the state highway, so there's always traffic. Doesn't really matter what time of day, there's traffic driving by.
And we get out there, and they're coming back down the roadway, and you can tell there's something wrong. Working with cattle all your life, you can tell their attitude, their demeanor about them. Their ears are at point, their heads up in the air, and we could tell
they were
they've
all
been running.
Sweaty, but like so happy that they were by light and by people, and as soon as they came like by us in the center of the road, right by our driveway, they just like, they just had that sigh of relief, like thank God.
And we got them back in that time and counted everything and made sure everybody was there, knew that they were calmed down, and then started discussing amongst ourselves. It's wildlife, or at the time we thought coyotes. This is coyotes doing this
because you could hear them at night. You could hear them yipping. You could hear them training their pups to yip. So you just thought, oh, well, it's coyotes. And everybody's always said, like, if you have coyotes, you don't have wolves. Oh, okay. Well, then we have coyotes.
Then about a month later in August, we got another phone call at 2 in the morning. Cattle on the roadway. Again, they were a ways away from the farm, and you could sense there's something wrong. You can see the fear in them. Ears at point, heads up again.
Yeah, just horrible. I mean, it was just horrible to see them because you knew that wasn't what they were normally like. They just were very calm, and they never ran. They didn't even run when you opened the pasture to a new pasture. They just walked in and heads down started eating again. So it was just scary to see them run.
This time it was harder to get them back to where they needed to go, and I've got them back out into their pasture, and they continued to run through fences. And to get them calmed down again, I took grain out and tried to control them, and Sherry stayed and talked to the officer that was here. And
we had a different officer than we had in the past. He was very it's your fences and it's your farming strategy, and you have fences that are held together with baler twine. And it wasn't worth arguing with her at the time because you could tell she was just so mad that she had been, that they had been out here several times before that they were just like sick of it. So she just said, well, I'm going to give you a ticket. Which one would you like the ticket to go to? And she just was adamant that it was us and that we were just doing a poor job as farmers and we were the problem and our cattle were the problem. So I took the ticket and it started to just downpour that night. And I was like, okay, well, we'll call you when we know that they're all in. Like, you don't need to stay.
And at that time, you're frustrated. You try to tell them that there's something going on. This is not lack of us maintaining our fences or not feeding our cattle. They have proper feed, water. We've had a professionally built 3-strand high tensile wire fence built, and that wasn't the issue. We knew it was something else. And at that time, we were fighting a losing battle on the farm. Our young calves for replacements in the future. Not only was it a liability for us, our cattle being on the road, but a liability for somebody else that could possibly hit them.
So then again, like a month later, same thing. Calves out on the road. Not a sheriff's department that time. That was somebody that just knocked on the door. Got to so bad that summer that if the ice dropped in like the refrigerator, Ryan would be like, oh my God, somebody's at the door. And it was like, no, nobody's at the door. Like that was the ice. And you immediately jump up. And the first thing I would do was look out our bedroom window. Oh, no cop lights. Like, okay, we don't have the cops. It's just somebody else. So it was just scary because, like any noise, you just learn to not sleep. You sleep really light. If you heard somebody mooing, you knew something was wrong because they don't move at night, It was just different. That was a really agitated summer. I feel like we woke up several times on different nights for no reason, just because you would hear something. If the kid moved upstairs in the bed or they dropped the remote off their bed onto the floor and it hit the floor, you'd wake up because it was a noise. And you were so used to getting up and chasing cattle.
And grazing was how we based our business plan off of. We were young when we started, 21 years old, and it was a way for us to get started in dairy industry with low cost and low overhead. And now it was kind of a nightmare to deal with, our cows on pasture and wildlife chasing them out. And we had no control over it.
So we decided to fight our ticket, and I went to my pretrial hearing with district attorney, and he, I walked in and walked to the far end of the table to shake his hand and say like, hi, and it's nice to meet you. And he said, you can sit at the far end of the table. I wouldn't even shake my hand. And I felt like, wow, like this is the big, like, oh my God, I really am a criminal. Like if this is what it's like, I don't want to do that. So it was just really scary to be there and to have to deal with it. And I expressed, we have these fences that we put in. They're professionally built. We spent a lot of money on them. We were out there with these cattle every single day. We think it's coyotes. Like we can't control what they do. All we can do is our best. And we've moved the cattle closer to the barn, and we've done all these different things to try to change what's happening, but it's not working. And at that time, they had kind of slowed down. They weren't out as often. It was maybe once, every couple of months versus every month on a continual basis. And he just told me, ma'am, you're going to have to buy a gun if you think it's coyotes. And I was like, well, I have 3 little boys at home. I don't want a gun. Like, we don't need a gun. We don't hunt. We have no interest in hunting. And he was just like, well, I'll see you in court.
And at that time, it was, we really didn't do anything wrong. We had no control over this. So we went, did our work, did our research on, wildlife issues and cattle and grazing. We talked to our fence builder, and he wrote a letter saying that this is what I built. These are good people. There's issues with wildlife. And
we talked to the guys who hunted on the farm if they would come to court and be witnesses, and they both immediately said, yes, we will come. He's like, there's times where you're out in the field and something is watching you, but you don't know what it is. And we had times where we had to go and pick him up with the truck. He'd be like, come out to the field and pick us up because there's something out here and I don't want to get down out of my tree stand. Oh, okay. And, we just kind of chalked it up like it's just coyotes, and you just go on with life. You never think it's the worst. You always think it's going to be okay.
In between the time of that pretrial hearing and the court case, early November, it was a Sunday, typical day, went out to the barn, and I get to the barn and there's cows in the barnyard. This is odd. This never happens. What's going on? Well, I went out and got the cows. I just seen the last of them, and it was good enough. We got them up here.
Yeah.
And doing chores, there was 2 calves that came running down the highway, and our neighbors at the time had some steers. So we got them off the road and put them in the barn and called them up and said, your calves are over here. You want us to bring them home, or you come and get them? Well, they came and got them and walked them back to their house through the ditch, and then had called us up and said, well, there's a cow out in the pasture and it looks like she's having a calf. I wasn't expecting anything to calve, so I went out and checked, and here it was a dead cow that was
Pretty much
mutilated
gone.
and eaten, and it was, well, what's going on here? You don't typically hear coyotes taking down cattle and eating them.
So we called the sheriff's department. We didn't know to call the DNR. We knew to call the sheriff's department. Deputy came out and he said, well, we're going to call the DNR. You need to put a fence around it. You need to cover it so nothing else comes in it. And then they'll come out and just, double check. And
Yeah, Monday the USDA APHIS division came out and confirmed that it was a wolf depredation. Showed us the tracks and everything and showed us why they determined this, that her pelvis was cracked, and then only an animal that powerful with a jaw bite that can do that is a wolf, that a bear wouldn't be able to do that, or a coyote wouldn't be able to do that. And then explained what happened, that they chased her from behind, ripped her tendons out of her back legs, and
ate her alive.
she was alive the whole time they were eating her till she bled out. Ate all the soft tissue off of her.
She had no ears left. Her tail was gone. Down her jaw was completely eaten. It was just a horrendous sight. And all three of our little boys were out there looking at it like, wow, what happened? So the following Wednesday, we went to court for our animals being out, and walked in there, and I was just shaking. Judge walked in, and she sat down, and she said, ma'am, are you going to be okay? And I said, no. I've never even been in the principal's office, and I shouldn't even be here. And the district attorney walked in, and he said, we're going to dismiss the case. Never said anything about why they were dismissing the case, nothing. Just, we're going to dismiss the case.
Now knowing what the problem is and not being able to do anything about it is kind of the thing that gets you. This is our livelihood, and we can't do anything about it, being that the wolves are on the endangered species list. And that's just not right, that you can't protect your own property. You just got it happen.
Since the wolf kill, we have changed all of our philosophies on the farm too. I mean, calves aren't on a pasture at all anymore. They're in the barn, because you can't risk that in that early months in June and July that they're going to train their pups on calves.
We figured at that time it was costing an extra $30,000 a year just to raise our young stock. And as time goes on, inflation goes up, so those costs are only higher now. And not only those financial costs, it's an emotional tax on us too.
Right, you still don't sleep at night. You still hear the ice drop, and it's like, oh, what was that? If the phone rings anytime after dark, your heart just starts racing. Doesn't matter if it's 8 o'clock or if it's like after the time change, if it's 5 o'clock.
And ourselves personally, we're not here to say we want to eradicate the wolf population. I mean, it's needed in the ecosystem. We just need it brought back under local control in Wisconsin, and not having a federal judge thousands of miles away say this is what the best thing for Wisconsin is, when we know it's not, and that the whole wildlife ecosystem in Wisconsin is managed, and there's a species that we're not allowed to manage, and it's getting out of control.
And we've seen them now. It was like 9 o'clock one day after it had snowed, and there was 6 of them in the field across the road from our house, just staring at our farm.
Since this has happened, we're very active in our ag group policy making decisions, and we've met with other hunting and wildlife groups to come up with ideas on how we can work together for a common goal. And we've gotten policy through to the DNR where we can get up to date and current locations where depredations have happened, so the public knows that it's an issue and where it's happening, and they can take precautions to protect their livestock or their pets or even their families. Nothing fencing wise has changed. Our fences are adequate to keep our cattle in when they're just doing their own business, when they're getting chased and fear for their life, they're going to run through whatever it is, just like us as a person. We're going to run for our life if something's chasing us or trying to take our life. And as sharing our story too, it's gone as far to DC at the modernization of the Endangered Species Act, and it's been shared there to say these are real issues that are happening. We need to do something about this. And it's going to take more than just the people who it's affecting. We need help from those others in our community to speak up and say it's time to bring the management of the wolves back to Wisconsin.
We're not experts on wolves at all, but we are experts on how that one pack of a wolf can haunt you your entire life till you just want to give up and just say, no, I'm done. I can't do this anymore.